Alyssa Thomas have a real deal MVP case? Are the Seattle Storm finally back? And what games in the WNBA can you not afford to miss this weekend? Let's get into it. And welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. It is No Cap Space, WBB, Andrew Hobner with you. Happy to be with you. Happy you are here with us. We're talking a little bit of WNBA basketball. This is going to be a fun one, recapping Thursday's games in the WNBA and previewing what we're going to get this coming weekend. We are recording this on a Friday morning at 9:20 a.m. Mountain Time. We are also broadcasting live on TikTok at the same time, which is something new for us that we're doing here. And as always, we're brought to you by Home Field. Use code NOCAP15 to get 15% off your first order. It is college football season, and nobody does college football better than Home Field. I got my Home Field shirt on. It is women's basketball related. I got the heart. I got the head. Wife's a Tennessee graduate. So happy wife, happy life. Shouts to my alma mater, the University of Colorado at Boulder. Let's talk some women's hoops because we had a great Thursday slate of games, including one heck of a nightcap between the Phoenix Mercury and the Chicago Sky. For those that are watching on YouTube, you will be able to see some of the screen shares here. TikTok, I'm waiting for you. I want you to be able to co-stream, do the things, the stream key. That's all we want. We want the chaos here. But for those that are just checking in, the New York Liberty won last night 89-63. The Seattle Storm beat the Minnesota Lynx 93-79. And the Phoenix Mercury outlasted the Chicago Sky late 83-79. Now, the first thing I want to do is talk about this Phoenix Mercury matchup because toward the end of the game, we ended up with one of those kind of MVP-ish type of moments that you see from a player. And while I know A'ja Wilson, Napheesa Collier are the two people at the top of the list right now in terms of MVP standing. If I had a vote, I would say Fee is probably still in the mix right now for the MVP award in the WNBA. I think A'ja Wilson is neck and neck just below her. It really just comes down to the fact that A'ja has put together so many 30-plus point performances that I think you can't say that Fee's lack of availability hasn't hurt her standing as the front runner. But Phoenix has been making a big push to talk about Alyssa Thomas as the MVP candidate, the third one in this mix here. And AT has always been a weird situation. She has been second and third in MVP voting before, and she opens up an interesting question about whether or not there is an obsession with points per game as an indicator of whether or not you are an MVP candidate in NBA basketball or WNBA basketball, right? When we look at somebody like Napheesa Collier and we look at somebody like A'ja Wilson, we're seeing someone that's a 23, 24 point per game scorer. They average, a 20 and 10 plus. But Alyssa Thomas is somebody that has had a significant amount of triple doubles this year. I know that it's not necessarily to the same regularity that we get in the NBA, but at the same time, it's one of those things where a triple-double is a triple-double. There is an impressive component of it regardless. And the other piece with the WNBA, for those that don't know, it's a 40-minute game versus a 48-minute game. So some of the statistics that you end up with when you try and stack them against the men's league, for instance, it's just not applicable because you're taking 8 minutes of statistics off the board. So Alyssa Thomas last night, 15 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, helps them win the game late. And AT ends up with a back-to-back possession that I think is always the interesting thing for me as to why or whether or not she is my MVP candidate in that respect. And a reason that I say that is because if you go back and look at the second to last possession when it is, I believe, 80-79, let me go back into the play-by-play and go find the specific run here because it really did establish this weird, is this what you want or what you don't want with Alyssa Thomas as an MVP candidate, right? So the first place we'll go to is 79-77. All right. AT ends up with the ball, 13 seconds left, gets the bucket, becomes 81-77, right? the play just before that ended up in a missed Kalia Copper 2 was they're doing this thing at the top of the key where AT is there with Dewana Bonner, and I think Satu Sabali's up there too. Screen is set, and then AT doesn't get the ball and is not involved in the possession again, and she pouts. Like, you see it. You see her kind of go like on the broadcast and sort of take herself out of the play for a brief moment. And in that moment, my initial thought is, that's not an MVP candidate. Like, in crunch time, when you are up to, you need the dagger, there's 30 seconds left, you can't get upset with the fact that you are not involved in this last play when you have two all WNBA caliber players in Kalia Copper and Satu Sabali on the floor, as well as Dewana Bonner, who is an all WNBA caliber player when she is able to kind of turn it up. But then the very next possession, you come in and you take Angel off the dribble and you go right to the cup and get the dagger. And on the other side, with 6 seconds left, you get the defensive rebound to win. And that's like this weird dichotomy with Alyssa Thomas, is like, as easily as you can give me MVP caliber performances late, you just kind of do this weird stuff sometimes that doesn't make me supremely convinced in you as an MVP from up here. And a lot of it is, and I can understand why it is, of a player who really wants to win. And we have a cover story that is coming on Saturday at nocapspacewbb.com about Alyssa Thomas. And I talked to Alyssa Thomas's mom. I talked to former teammates at Maryland. I talked to her college coach, Brenda Fries, kind of about where that comes from. Like, a player who literally just wants to win at the expense of needing or requiring stardom or interest. But there's this funny combo piece that comes in, is, you know, the emotion of not having somebody give you your just due. Like, the fan, you know, is not giving her her just due. And emotion is very normal in basketball. It absolutely is. The issue, though, that I have with AT is that has come up in the playoffs in the past. Like, wanting to have such a degree of control over the ability to win games is this thing for her that it's a superpower, but it can also be an occasional hindrance when you are trying to win these games tight, because you want to have the ball in your hands and you want to have that control. Like, that's a player who I think is able to do it. But you also can't deny the skill and ability of a player like this, you know, and I do think there is a fair discussion that we have with her as an MVP, where we look at the point per game average and we say, oh, because Alyssa Thomas only averages 16 points per game, does that make her a viable MVP level candidate? I think so. When you're averaging 16, 9, and 9 in this league, I think you are an MVP level candidate. And Phoenix as an organization has really pushed this in the last week in trying to get her into that conversation, as we have watched A'ja Wilson enter this conversation with the amount of 30-plus point per game performances she has had. But I also think it's worth noting here that as much as people are going to want to down AT and down the averages or down her as a player, I think that this was these averages she has this year: 15.8 points per game, 9 rebounds, 9.2 assists per game. 2 years ago, Alyssa Thomas finished second in the MVP voting with similar stats. The year that Breanna Stewart won in 2023, AT was second, A'ja Wilson was third. That infamous fourth place vote on A'ja that season was one of those things where, oddly enough, the fourth place vote wouldn't have actually put her over the top to go and beat Stewie in that voting. It actually, Alyssa Thomas was the one that took a lot of those votes away. And frankly, rightly so. I mean, AT, to me, is one of the most underappreciated players in this league. She is a consummate floor raiser, probably the best floor raiser in the WNBA in a lot of ways. And to give you an understanding of where she has been in the MVP voting, MVP 2 in 2023, as I mentioned, 15.5 points per game, 9.9 assists, 7.9 assists. by all numbers and statistics, Alyssa Thomas is giving you more this season than she did in a season where she was first team all WNBA, first team all defense, second in DPOY voting, second in MVP voting. So if we're going to go off the same standard, I feel like AT has to be in this mix maybe a little more seriously. And maybe that's on me for not taking her seriously enough over the past handful of weeks. And I can cop to if I need to put a little bit more respect on Alyssa Thomas' name, like I very much can do that sort of thing. But I'm really interested to see the next handful of games for Phoenix, because if we look at the schedule, and this is something we're going to discuss in this weekend preview that we have, the one game that Phoenix has this weekend, Saturday against the New York Liberty, where you are going to see Breanna Stewart, you're going to see Emma Mieseman, potentially Jonquel Jones if she's healthy. There's still that injury question, and Sabrina Ionescu, who also might be on the injury list as well with that injury that she picked up. But it is at home, and Phoenix has a pretty plumb back end here. They got 6 games left rather until the playoffs hit. You have New York and Indiana. Those are your 2 toughest games. And then you have Washington, Connecticut, LA, and Dallas. LA is fighting for their playoff lives. Connecticut's playing great, but they're both down at the end of the bottom of the league standings with Dallas. Washington has packed it in, even though they have really good younger players. They've kind of packed it in for the year with the intent to try and secure a lottery pick. So there's a really good chance Phoenix could go anywhere from 4-2 to 6-0 in the final 6 games of the year. And I think that's something that people need to kind of look at and pay attention to. Some of the other matchups that we got on Thursday before we go into the full weekend preview, the New York Liberty beat the Washington Mystics. Breanna Stewart has returned. That is a huge, huge win for New York. Stewie, though, I need a 30 for 30 done on what happened to Breanna Stewart's 3-point shot. I really, really want to know what happened to that shooting percentage, because it has fallen off a cliff in recent years. And it's really especially changed since getting to New York. I mean, she's never been the world's greatest 3-point shooter. Her best season as a 3-point shooter was 2018. Stewie went 41.5% from 3, 2 of 4.5 on the averages. Not anything supremely incredible, but she was always like somewhere between 30 and 35% as a shooter when she played in Seattle. The minute she gets to New York, Stewie's averages from the field are pretty much the same. They're still 45, 46%. But as a 3-point shooter, you go down to 29.5% in 2024. This year, 20.5% from 3. That is a remarkable drop off for a player. I mean, that's 20% off your career high average. And I don't know if it's just a function of the offense, if it's a function of how she's playing, if age is caught up, but Stewie is not shot well from 3. Even when she gives you so much on the defensive side of the ball and so much as a facilitator, just someone who takes the attention of defenses and opens things up for somebody like an Emma Mieseman or even Izzy Harrison, who had 16 points in that Mystics game. Really interested to see Stewie's offensive output the rest of the way. The defense is clear, right? She had 9 rebounds. You've seen it with her out of the lineup, just some of the holes in New York's front court. But I want to see a little bit more from her in terms of can she still give you what you need to space the floor out appropriately? Because if she hits that 3 with consistency, that's going to be a huge, huge piece of their ability to win going forward. Final thing I want to talk about here before we go to the weekend preview. And if you have any questions on the TikTok live, you have any questions on YouTube, feel free to put it in the comments and let us know, because we'll be sure to answer them before we wrap up. The Seattle Storm beat the Minnesota Lynx 93-79. This was a remarkable resurgence game from Seattle. 23 points for Skylar Diggins on 8 of 14 shooting, and a lot of cash shit that was talked to the Minnesota bench. Gabby Williams was 16, Dominique Malonga with 13. I'm going to take a second to talk about Dominique Malonga here, folks, because I've been on this train forever. If you go to nocapspacewbb.com and you go to our No Cap cover series, our monthly cover story that we do, we did one on Dominique Malonga a couple of months ago before she was drafted, and she was a great interview and has turned into a great player. I legitimately am of the mindset I think she has a shot to be a contender for 6th player of the year in the WNBA this year. And that's crazy to think, given that she averaged maybe like 15, 20 minutes a game tops up until the All-Star break. But since the All-Star break, the averages have been pretty ridiculous for a player of her caliber. I mean, several 20-plus point games, a couple of 2010s in there. Rebounding numbers are way, way up. I mean, she was 6 of 7 from the field last night. If you don't know, Dominique Malonga's her, like, and is going to be her for a really long time. Watch Paige, watch Caitlin. I hear that. But Dominique Malonga of the Seattle Storm is the next player, man. I mean, the highest potential of any player in the league right now. 6'7", 3-level scorer, amazing rebounder, can run the floor. Like, it's, I mean, she gets the Wemby comparison a lot because she's also French and tall and lanky and does all the things that Wemby does. She is her own player. And when she starts dunking, which she can, it's going to become, really scary for the league. As for Minnesota here, not the greatest of nights for Nafisa Collier, 18 points on 23 shots, 0 of 5 from 3. Kayla McBride had a nice night, 7 of 13, 5 of 8 from 3. She had 20 points. Courtney Williams had 18. Turnovers, not really a tough situation for Minnesota. 14 turnovers to Seattle's 9. 10 of 14 from the free throw line. Really, this thing just came down to the fact that Seattle shot the ball really well from 3. 16 of 33. Gabby Williams, 4 of 5. Skylar Diggins, 4 of 8. Erica Wheeler, 4 of 7. And if you go into the play-by-play, you can see exactly where things changed. There was a third quarter run here where Seattle seemingly couldn't miss from 3-point range. I mean, you're talking Skylar hits 2 straight right at the top of the third. Erica Wheeler with 6 minutes left. And then in the last 5, Ezzy hit, Skylar hit, Dominique hit, Erica 3-pointer, Skylar again, Sykes to the line, Malonga one more time, Wheeler another 3, and then Skylar hits a 3 to put them up 4 with 1 second left in the third quarter. And so to me, that was the matchup win there. I mean, a big quarter can win you games, and that's what we saw from Seattle, a team that needs it, mind you, because if we rock over into the standings here, Seattle is 21-19. This gives them a little bit of breathing room. They are a half a game up from Golden State on that 8th seed. The Sparks are 2 games below 500 right now, and so LA is 17-19. They got to put together some wins and fast if they want to qualify for the playoffs. And right now, there's 2 teams that have made it in. Minnesota's in at 30-8. Vegas is clinched at 26-14. Then you have a 3-team pseudo tie. Atlanta, Phoenix, New York, all separated by a half a game, 24-14, 24-14, 24-15. And then, as we mentioned, Indiana's in there 20-18, Seattle 21-19. I don't think Seattle can get higher than a 5th seed, but even getting a 6 is going to be really a substantial difference between a team like Atlanta and having to get a Minnesota. But I will say this about Seattle. Seattle is the one team that has given the Minnesota Lynx trouble this year. And so there is a piece here for me where I'm kind of looking at this going, well, maybe the Wings, or not the Wings, maybe the Lynx don't want to get Seattle at any point in the playoffs. I would be very fascinated to see. So let's go into the weekend preview. If you have any questions about the games, feel free to let us know. This will also be in our weekend preview piece. We call it the Ball Knowers Watch Guide. If you know ball, if you love ball, we do it all on NoCapSpaceWBB.com. We let you know how the game scores out of 10, like on the must-watch scale, what to watch for, who to watch for, and why it's worth a watch. We'll go through this because we love doing everything in video form, multi-platform for all of you guys. So we'll start on Friday. Dallas Wings, Atlanta Dream, 5:30 p.m., 7:30 Eastern on Ion. Oh, man. 7 out of 10 on the must-watch scale, I think. Obviously, this game gets a little more interesting if you're watching Paige Beckers, but at this point in the year, with the injuries that Dallas has had and just how bad they've looked all season long, I'm watching for Paige, and if Paige isn't playing, I think I'm good on watching Dallas. Atlanta, what makes this interesting for Atlanta, though, is like Atlanta's messed around and found out with a few of these games this season. And if you go into the schedule and look at some of the 14 games the Dream have lost, they haven't lost games recently against teams that they have the ability to beat. It's more of an early season thing where like they've lost to Dallas. They've had bad games to Indiana. They lost to Golden State. And yet when they've really needed to in the last month and a half, they've locked in. I mean, their 3 losses in the past month have been a 2-point loss to Seattle, a 2-point loss to Vegas, and then a 6-point loss to Vegas after that. So I can't really fault the Dream very much here because they've been winning and losing a lot of close games. I don't really think that this one is in much doubt against Dallas. I think Atlanta's going to win that one walking away, 7 out of 10. To me, this late night game, 10 o'clock Eastern on Ion, 8 o'clock this evening, the Indiana Fever take on the LA Sparks. And personally, I think this game's like an 8.5 out of 10 because there's a lot of stakes. And like I grade my must watches on like star power, how good a team is, but also what the stakes are of the game. And to me, this game is deciding whether or not the LA Sparks make the WNBA playoffs or not. If the Sparks manage to beat Indiana, then Seattle takes a half game lead on Indiana. Golden State pulls within a half a game of Indiana for the 7th seed, and the Sparks are now a game off of the 8th seed. So this game really is going to decide, does Indiana have the juice to push into a top 6 seed? Because if you go on a run of wins here, you could theoretically get close to a Phoenix or a New York. Or you lose this game if you're Indiana, and now you're stuck in the mix of that 3rd tier, which is LA, Golden State, Indiana, and Seattle. And I don't think you want to be in that place if you're Indiana with 5 or 6 games left in the regular season. LA desperately needs this. I mean, this is the season for the LA Sparks. So if they don't come out juiced up and ready to go, turn it in at the door. Because if you can't show up for a game like this, then I don't know what kind of games you're showing up for. Let's go to Saturday, August 30th. At 5 o'clock Mountain Time, 7 o'clock Eastern on NBA TV, the Minnesota Lynx take on the Connecticut Sun. This one is a 7.5 out of 10 on my watch scale because the Connecticut Sun, believe it or not, have actually kicked ass in the last week or two. Of all of the teams in the WNBA right now, they are among the hottest. They've won 5 of their last 7 games, and the 2 losses have come to the Indiana Fever, who they lost to by 6, and barely losing to the New York Liberty, 81-79. To me, I love the Connecticut Sun. I have no compunction about saying it. I have been on it with this team when they were like 4-23. I believe in this team long-term. If you want a team to like buy into, if you're just like a general WNBA fan right now and you want a team to root for in the future, root for the Connecticut Sun. Get by the 10-28 record. This is like buying in on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's Oklahoma City Thunder before they really started to perform at the level that they are now. You have a French rookie, Layla Lacan. You have a rookie from NC State, Sanaya Rivers, Anissa Morrow, the rookie from LSU, Aaliyah Edwards from UConn, who's a second-year player, Olivia Nelson-Adota, who is, I think, a 3rd or 4th-year player from UConn. They have so much young talent under the age of 25 that this game actually might be a lot closer. People are going to look at the records here and think the Lynx are going to absolutely pile drive Connecticut. I would not be surprised if this game was closer than we think it is. This game might actually end up being really fun and really compelling for a team that's out of the playoffs. There is a very good culture being built in Connecticut, and I think people need to kind of keep an eye on what the Sun are doing and how this game might go. The Washington Mystics and the Golden State Valkyries tip-off, that is 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's going to be on League Pass if you can't get it, or locally, I think it's KPix and KOVR. I will say this. I think the Mystics have the ability to beat Golden State here. The Valkyries, to me, are a hot and cold team. Washington really is dependent on Shakira Austin at this point. I mean, it's Sonia Citron, it's Kiki Iriafen, the 2 rookies that have really been the leaders and played the best for Washington so far this season. However, if you don't have Shakira Austin performing, you're probably not going to play the best, as we saw in that loss on Thursday night. So as easily as I could see Washington winning this game, I could easily see them losing this game But because of that, it's an 8 out of 10 for me. I think these types of matchups are really fun because you don't know who's going to win, and you want to go in wanting to see who is going to be the better of that matchup. And there's stakes here. Golden State needs this win to stay in the playoff hunt. At 9 o'clock, also on League Pass, Chicago Sky and Seattle Storm. Chicago's another team like Connecticut where Angel Reese has been playing so well that she lifts her team up from the doldrums of being awful, which they were when she wasn't in the lineup, to being a solid team that can contend at the middle of this league. They're not a playoff team. They're not a finals team, but they can play with top teams in this league and still remain competitive, as you saw last night where they almost got the better of the Phoenix Mercury. Seattle, I think if they're not careful, they're going to lose this game, but Seattle also lives and dies on efficient three-point shooting. So if they're shooting the ball well, Chicago's Achilles heel is their three-point defense. So if you end up in a situation where the Storm are hitting from deep, this game's going to end in pretty short order. And then the game of the night, if you can't watch any other game, watch this game. 10 o'clock Eastern, NBA TV, New York Liberty, Phoenix Mercury. This is a matchup that will help decide the number 2 seed in the NBA playoffs. If you go to the standings right now, the Liberty are just a half a game back from the Phoenix Mercury. AT, as I mentioned earlier at the top of this live and this show, is making an MVP push. If you want to be a player that is in MVP contention, these are the types of games where you got to show up. So if we end up with like an 18, 10, and 10 triple-double out of Alyssa Thomas here, that conversation about MVP is going to start to become a lot louder from Phoenix. It's not just going to be a team-oriented push. It's going to be something that we in the media are going to have to talk a little bit more about. For New York, they need this win, and they need it very, very badly. You need Breanna Stewart to show up. I don't know if Sabrina Ionescu is going to be healthy for this one. We'll have information on that tomorrow when the injury report comes out. But to me, Phoenix being at home here, minus 1.5 favorites, I feel like this game is a must-win for Phoenix. I mean, they're all must-wins for everybody. I know that's such like a journalist trope, but Phoenix, you have to win that if you're Phoenix. You absolutely have to. On Sunday, we got a couple other games that kind of are along the same lines of like playoff lives on the line here. Washington and LA, that's at 8 o'clock. That's a League Pass game. Again, another matchup that can go really either way. LA, once again, fighting for their playoff lives. If you win both of these games this weekend against Indiana and Washington, you're 19-19, and you're right back in the mix for that 8th seed. Golden State takes on Indiana a half hour later on NBA TV, so 8:30 Eastern on NBA TV, Indiana plays Golden State. That's another game where LA, if they end up winning, on Friday and then Sunday, and either Golden State or Indiana loses that Friday matchup, then this Sunday game becomes about who takes the 8th spot with 4 games left in the regular season. So there's a lot of great seeding matchups and battles here, and it goes into Monday as well. Seattle, LA in the nightcap, 10 o'clock Eastern, NBA TV. To me, 8.5 out of 10 on this one. You also get to see Cam Brink against Dominique Malonga, which is an extremely fun matchup, as well as Kelsey Plum versus Skylar Diggins. That late match is going to be great. Minnesota and Dallas also play on Monday. That's an 8 o'clock game on NBA TV. It's the precursor game to the LA and Seattle nightcap. It's a skip. It's 7 out of 10. Minnesota, I think, is going to pummel Dallas unless something crazy happens. And then early in the morning, you have a 1 p.m. matchup, kind of the rare early afternoon matchup that we get on Mondays. It is Atlanta and Connecticut at Mohegan Sun. I love Connecticut. I think Atlanta, this is one of those matchups where Connecticut just doesn't match up well with Atlanta here. And so I think that this is going to be something where the Dream kind of cruise. The schedule for Atlanta is not the easiest the rest of the way, but I do think they've got some pretty plus matchups. Oh, actually, never mind. This is super easy. Dallas, Connecticut 3 times, LA 2 times. Yeah, I think Atlanta's going to be fine the rest of the way. I confused their schedule with somebody else's, clearly. So those are all the games we got. If you can only watch one game a day this weekend, I would say Friday night, 10 o'clock Eastern on ION, Indiana versus LA. On Saturday, if you are not watching college football, hang around for the nightcap. Honestly, 8 o'clock, I mean, there's no Pac-12 After Dark anymore. So, I mean, WNBA games in the After Dark slot, I'm fine with that being taken. 8 o'clock Mountain, 10 o'clock Eastern, NBA TV, New York against Phoenix on Saturday. If you can only watch one WNBA game for the weekend, that's your game. Phoenix and New York on Saturday night. And then on Sunday, if you can only watch one Sunday game, Indiana and Golden State, that game 8:30 p.m. Eastern on NBA TV. And if you can only watch one game on Monday, LA and Seattle, 10 o'clock NBA TV. So it's going to be late. A lot of the games are going to be late at night, but I would highly recommend that grouping. You can find all of that on nocapspacewbb.com. That is our website. That is where we cover the WNBA, NCAA women's basketball, and women's basketball all over the globe better than anybody else on the planet. You can mark my words on that. Be sure to follow us here on TikTok, on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, do all the things that you know how to do with your phone on No Cap Space WBB. And we'll be here talking women's basketball anywhere and everywhere you get it. But that's all the time we got for this weekend preview. We will be back on Sunday for our live recap show on YouTube, and we'll be right back here anywhere you are on Thursdays to continue to break down the WNBA, the games, and what comes next. We'll see y'all very, very soon.